Hi guys, today in class we are going to review solving equations and inequalities for our Unit 1 test that will be held on Friday, September the 11th. Okay, so for your warm-up today, solve for m, okay, and your equation is F equals ma. This type of problem is what we call a literal equation, okay? There are no numbers involved. A few students in class were confused as to how they would do this problem with no numbers, right? So we would still do it the same way. We split our problem down the equal sign. We look to each side to see if we can simplify it. We don't have anything to simplify, right? Because we don't have any numbers to combine. Letters can't go together unless they're the same, right? So we look to start rearranging our problem, okay? The way we do that is by doing opposite operation. Remember our goal was to solve for m? So that means that wherever m is, I want to get it by itself or alone, right? So in order to do that, I've got to separate these two, this m and this a. I've got to know that the operation between these two is multiplication. Opposite of multiplication would be division. So I need to be dividing by that letter A. What I do on one side, I have to do on the other, right? This side simplifies to be m equals. I can't do anything on this side besides keep it as F divided by A, right? So there we go. We have m equals F divided by A, and I did not need any numbers to get to my answer. Okay, guys, so if you notice, our learning target is going to have the two things that we've been working on for Unit 1, right? Solving multi-step equations and solving multi-step inequalities. Okay, so I kind of combined our checklists, both of them, into one because they are very much alike. They are similar, right? So we're still splitting up our problem, either down the equal sign or the inequality sign, depending on what type of problem we're given, right? We look to each side to see if we can simplify. Remember, we simplify by either combining like terms or distributing. We rearrange our problem using opposite operations, and then we're going to solve for the variable, whatever we're given, whether it's an equal sign or an inequality sign. Okay, and then we went ahead and went straight into review for Unit 1. We worked on a Jamboard. I'll open it here in just a minute and we'll kind of talk through some of the examples. And then I will tell you the options that you have or things that you need to do to get you ready for Friday. Okay, before we move on to the examples, one of the options that we have is to make up our quizzes grade. So the solving two-step equations, right? The link is posted under today's assignment in Google Classroom. So if you go to week 4, look for 9-9. Today's assignment has a link to quizzes that you can click on, and it takes you directly to this solving two-step equations. Okay? You can always just type joinmyquiz.com, enter this code, and you can also access it there. Okay? The last things that we have assigned to us are Khan Academy assignments, okay? One of them is a multi-step equations review, okay? This will be just a review for us, okay? It's an article that goes step by step and kind of guides you through the problems, okay? The next one is equations with parentheses, including decimals and fractions. That one is for a grade. And then we did have the multi-step inequalities assigned to us, okay? Some students did submit it, received a grade. Those of you that had passing 75 or above, I kept your grade. If you got below a 75, I am letting you redo it, okay, to make that up. So it was reassigned to you, okay? Okay, so this next thing that I opened was a Jamboard, okay, and I'm going to kind of talk you through the examples that we did in class. So the first one on slide 2, because slide 1 was our warm-up, right? So slide 2, the first problem was 7h equals negative, and then in parentheses 2h minus 18. I went ahead and drew this 1 for us, so that way we remembered that when we don't see a number there, there's automatically a 1, okay? So that way we know what we're multiplying, and it's not just a floating negative sign, right? So I'm going to go ahead and take that -1, distribute or multiply it by every term on the inside. 2h is a term, -18 is a term, right? So when I multiply those, I'm going to bring down my 7h, my equal sign, -1 times 2h is a -2h, right? -1 times a -18 gives me that +18. Okay, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to rearrange my problem now because I don't have any more simplifying. I'm going to do opposite of this minus 2h. Opposite would be to add 2h to both sides, right? Remember, if we're moving it to the opposite side, we've got to do opposite operation. Okay, these simplify here. I combine those two on the left-hand side. I get 9h equals, I brought down my 18. My last step would be to divide by 9 on both sides, so that way I get h by itself, and h is equal to 2. Okay, my next problem is another equation. Okay, I look to both sides. I know that I can simplify the right-hand side, okay, because I do see parentheses. It's a distributive property. So what I did is I drew my arrows to distribute. When I distribute, that means I multiply, right? So my left-hand side, so far, I'm bringing down my 4r minus 3, bringing down my equal sign. When I multiply 3 times 3r, I get a 9r. 3 times 4, a positive 4, I get a positive 12. Okay, I cannot simplify any further on the left or the right, so now I've got to start rearranging my problem. Okay, I'm choosing to move my 9r. I'm going to do a minus 9r, right? Opposite operation on both sides. So when I simplify my left-hand side, I get -5r minus 3 is equal to 12 because these canceled out on this side because I got 0. Now I've got to move that -3. Opposite would be a +3 on both sides, right? So my left-hand side, those 3's simplify. So I'm getting -5r is equal to 15 because I added that 12 and that 3. My last step would be to divide by -5 on both sides. Simplify the left-hand side. I get r is equal to a -3. Okay, our next problem is another equation, but this time I have parentheses. I do have parentheses, but I also have decimals, right? So I split up my problem. I look to my left-hand side and I notice parentheses. So I know that I have to distribute that 10 to each term on the inside. So I drew my distributing arrows. When I distribute, I multiply. So I went ahead and did 10 times 0.4. I got a positive 4. Then I multiplied 10 times 0.5g. I got a positive 5g. Brought down my equal sign. Brought down my 4g because I hadn't done anything with it yet, right? Okay, then I went ahead and started rearranging my problem after I simplified. In order to move that positive 5g to the right side, I had to do opposite operation. So I did -5g on both sides. I brought down my 4, what I was left with on the left-hand side, equal to my -1g, right? Because I did 4 minus 5, I got -1g. Okay, my last step is to divide by -1 on both sides, so that way I'm left with g by itself. Okay, my left-hand side simplifies to be -4. Okay, our last problem is an inequality. Last example is an inequality that we're going to work together. Okay, so I split up my problem down the inequality sign. I was about to say equal. Okay, I cannot simplify on either side. So I'm going to go ahead and start rearranging my problem. Okay, you could move the 16 or the 13 first. I chose to move the 13. So I did negative 13 or minus 13 on both sides. Notice how I lined up that minus 13 with the 16. Okay, I did not line it up with my 56W. Okay, so I simplified the left-hand side and I got 53W is less than 56W plus 3 because I just subtracted those. 16 minus 13, I got 3. Okay, now I am choosing to move that negative 56, right? I want to move it to the left-hand side. So I'm moving the 56W, right? So opposite would be minus 56W on the right side and on the left side, okay? So if I simplify now, I'm left with negative 3W on the left is less than 3 because those 56s simplified to be 0. I need to divide by a negative 3 right here, right, with my W. Remember, that flips my inequality sign anytime I multiply or divide by a negative number. Okay, we've got to remember that. That is one of the important points in inequalities, okay? All right, so I am left with W. Notice how my inequality symbol switched directions. Is greater than a negative 1 because I did 3 divided by negative 3 and we got a negative 1. So if I was to put this answer on a number line, right? Let's draw our number line, continuing in both directions. I'm going to go ahead and put that negative 1 right in the middle. Remember, if there is not a line underneath that inequality symbol, this one just says greater than, right? That means I have an open circle at my number, and then I shade the direction based on what my statement is telling me. W greater than negative 1, so it's going to be everything shaded to the right-hand side.